All right, everyone, we should be live. Let's make sure that is actually the case. Of course, we have to go over to Rumble, where there's about a 10-15 second delay or thereabouts, and we'll figure out what's going on. I do see that chat is working, so of course, that's a good sign as usual. We will reload it and see if we are live. Hopefully the cat doesn't decide to launch herself up there and go crazy. She's given me the kitty eyes down there. She's doing shiny-eyed thing. It's mischief mode. I've got, by the way, a bulwark of energy drinks right in front of me before my screen, because her thing is she'll try to park between the screen and the keyboard. It really distracts me and also cuts off part of my camera angle. So I've literally got an army of energy drinks there to dissuade her from thinking that that's her spot. I do see that we're live on Rumble. So anyway, we've got a lot of news to cover today. Of course, we'll start with the obvious, Donald Trump 2024. There are plenty of other funny things to cover, though. There's a shit ton of shit going on right now. The Republicans have, by the way, taken the House. They have clinched 218 in the House of Representatives. So let me make sure that everything's working here. I believe it is. Yes, indeed. I'm hyper-caffeinated, of course, as you can tell. I decided to down an extra energy drink. I've got a half of one right here, specifically because, of course, the main news of the day is that Donald Trump is running for the presidency. He announced, of course, at the Mar-a-Lago. He gave what I perceive of as being a pretty good speech. I would rate it an 8 out of 10, actually. It was fairly good. He did what he needed to do. Number one, comparing the failures of the Biden admin with the successes of the Trump administration beforehand, but doing it without a huge amount of here comes the kitty. Doing it without a huge amount of insult flinging. He looked more presidential, a little bit more calm and relaxed. And that is what he needed to do, in my opinion. In fact, I think I had predicted that he should do that. What I want to see now is Donald Trump pivot. I want to see him pivot from, over the couple of past years, he's been talking mainly about the 2020 election. He needs to effectively say something along the lines of, well, my opponents want to look to the past. I've decided to look to the future. I'm talking about 2024. They're still stuck in the mire of past elections. They can't get over things. He needs to take their ammo and whirl it around and fling it back at them. And we'll see if that actually happens. Also, I am very, very interested to see who his running mate will be. I have a feeling that he will attempt to draft aboard a running mate before the primaries are actually over, just to sort of seal the deal and say, look, I'm asserting myself. I'm the de facto incumbent for the Republicans, at least. Don't bother fucking with me. I've already chosen a running mate. I have a feeling that he'll do that. I think it's a good idea. And I think that he may very well go Grover Cleveland mode. That is that he may be the second president in U.S. history to have 2 non-consecutive terms. What he can't get bogged down and do is ramble about 2020. He needs to ignore it entirely. It will be brought up by the Democrats, by the way, through the legacy media on big tech, etc. He is capable of taking that and using it against them by saying, look, they're still talking about 2020. I haven't mentioned it. I didn't mention it in my announcement, really, and I'm not mentioning it now. I'm talking about the things we want to do in the future. If he can control himself long enough to do that, I think that he has a good shot of winning, actually. I realize there will be honkening. I made a Substack article earlier. By the way, pinned comment if you're watching on YouTube, and also link in the description cross-platform. We are cleaning up the U.S. flag in commemoration of this great day on Pixel Planet, so you can help to clean up the U.S. flag. But I did make a Substack article as well on the subject. And what I pointed out is what you're about to see is that the uniparty system, the GOP leadership, the Democrats, the legacy media, the big tech firms, at least to some extent, will dogpile Donald Trump. They are terrified of him taking the reins of power again. They're going to cast it off as him running just to save himself because he has legal problems and shit like that. You should ignore all of these people, the black pillars, and I will be voting for Donald Trump, to be clear, in the primaries. I think that he is the best choice. Even if he loses, I would rather nominate the best choice and have them lose than nominate someone who is lesser and have them win. Because what's the point? If I'm gonna end up voting between Obama and Romney 2.0, If it's going to be Joe Biden or Kamala or somebody like that versus Mitt Romney, Liz Cheney, Mike Pompeo, why the fuck would I even bother? I will abandon the Republican Party if that happens. If Donald Trump, and I pointed this out as well, is defeated in an honest-to-goodness primary where it does not appear that there are shenanigans, I will consider voting for the Republican nominee, depending on who that nominee is. But right now, I'm really not seeing anyone other than DeSantis who would hold a candle to him. And DeSantis has effectively ruled out running if Donald Trump announces, which literally he did in the last 24 hours. I'm skeptical that DeSantis will jump in. I do not believe that DeSantis is in on the astroturfing joke that's being cast by Mitch McConnell and others. I encourage you all to support Donald Trump. I certainly will be. And also Herschel Walker right now. We'll touch on this briefly because Donald Trump threw this in. And this was actually one of the best things he did in his speech. Some people were telling him, look, Donald, punt it past the Georgia primary. Don't get in on the race until after that's decided. You're going to hurt the candidate. He came out and glowingly endorsed Herschel Walker. That was a good decision. Pointing out the race, saying that he has a clear preference. This is a MAGA candidate. Now, we see what happens there. All eyes on Georgia at the moment, in my opinion. Josh Palillo, GOP, no, you can't have populism. Of course. Darun Albane, you need to listen to the Milo Tim Pool show. Your alt tech was half wrong. Spoonful of sugar being rewarded for things you should do. Not a banned account. Will Putin bomb or nuke his own cities to blame us? We will be talking about Poland, by the way. That's a big story. Fubar 2020, thoughts on Carrie Lake election. She needs to force a recount, a hand recount. There should be international observers there because the Arizona election system is brutally inefficient. In a first world country, it should not take a week to decide the results of an election. It's not necessary. It's not proper. It does not matter in the end who wins. We should be reforming the election system there. Iggy the Incubus. Due to age, this may well be Trump's last shot. The Uniparty knows this. They will pull every last trick they have to do it. Do not be demoralized. They want this. Make America great again. Purge the Uniparty. I agree. Although I would point out that if he takes a leaf out of Biden's playbook, I guess he can go a fourth time because Biden seems to actually be crazy enough to be gearing up for a potential run. Chiqui Dogemeyer, rip to all drug dealers, lol. Yeah, I do not agree with Trump on the idea of executing drug dealers. I would point out this is not an issue for me supporting his re-election bid, though, because it's impossible for the federal government to implement such a rule. Rob S. Musk, buying Twitter is an accelerant to creating X, the everything app, aspiring to replicate the success of WeChat, which over the past decade has become the everything app in China. Thoughts? Possibly. I think that's what Zuckerberg aimed towards with Meta. Good luck to him, I suppose, setting such a thing up. Mark, Trump will be ruthless if he wins. He won't have to worry about the second term. Yeah, that's the other thing. Electing Trump means that you don't have to worry about the re-election bid towards the end of the presidency. There is definitely an advantage in that. Missy Stixie, we are part of the United Sticks of America. The Grizzly, what do you think? Do you think that Trump can ever even win with what we saw in the 2022 midterms, with the Uniparty trying to strangle MAGA, trying not to be black-pilled about this, especially with states like Michigan? Yeah, there will definitely be obstruction by the GOP leadership. I would say that over the next couple of years, we need to purge the ranks of the GOP. If Trump is going to stand any shot of winning, by the way, you need to tackle the state and local races as well in the meantime. You need to kick out any neocons that are in power to the best of your ability. And there are some that are on the chopping block, of course, and special elections and local elections, etc. for the next year. Target those first and get them out of the way. Not a banned account. Will cowardly Putin attack a European city soon? No, I don't think so. Of course, Ukraine is in Europe, just to be clear, just not the European Union. Al-Qaeda, remember DNC, FTX are connected. Don't forget it. Yeah, that has been conveniently forgotten over the current news cycle, I would point out. Hunter Wadley, Trump killed it. Lake VP, I'd love to see, but I think Tulsi could be a unifier, and she's looking better by the day. Tulsi Gabbard would be acceptable. I would accept that, although I would have some misgivings. I want to see more pro-gun rhetoric from her. I want to see her take a goddamn machine gun and go out to the range. Then I would consider it more. I think that right now the power ranking is Rand Paul, unless you try to oust McConnell and get him in as the head of the Senate for the Republicans. Rand Paul. Number 2 would be Carrie Lake. I think the verbosity, the rhetorical skills, the fact that she's from Arizona, a very, very important swing state, is good. Tulsi would be on that list in the top 5. Ironically, Ted Cruz is up there, even though I personally would not support that move. He would be up there with regards to the listing. Even Marco Rubio, which would be hilarious. If he chooses Rubio, it's more of a comedy duo than anything else, but he did outperform. He performed just as well as goddamn DeSantis. Joseph Rowland. Bro, to be honest, I do honestly believe that he's electable at this point. Not trying to be argumentative, I just have concerns. Here's the thing. I don't care whether Trump is electable. I don't care about the winning of the election. I care about fucking the uniparty system in the ass. Trump is capable of doing that. Most of the others are not. Not a banned account. Chances Biden bravely deploys ground troops in Ukraine. Well, they're already there. That's the problem. I reported on this last week. Yes, we do have a handful of troops on the ground in Ukraine being shuttled around to check on weapons to make sure that nothing's ending up on the black market. I would ask this, of course, entirely rhetorically. If a foreign nation is getting your weapons and you're worried enough about a black market sale that you're potentially putting your troops in harm's way against another nuclear power, should you be giving them those weapons to begin with? I answer no. Apparently the Uniparty, of course, answers yes. Ben Dover, diaper fund incoming, but enough about Biden. Ryan McDonald, USA. Ted Cruz also pays to play with Congress like McConnell is doing with the Senate, and DeSantis did it with the Republican governors around the nation. Yeah, true. I mean, some of these people are half-assing it when it comes to standing for actually making America great again. That being said, half-asser is better than a no-asser, I suppose, in that situation, for what little it's worth. FDL Ralph, appreciate your opinion on this. Preserving your privacy, of course. Do you recommend a specific wallet to hold crypto? Do you use a cold wallet? Preserving my privacy, I guess I won't answer that particularly. But I don't use an exchange to hold my crypto. I will say that. It has nothing to do with the exchanges. Massachusetts Sticks and Arkansas Sticks. United Sticks of America. Fire down below. Is it fair to say MAGA won't win elections as long as there is mail-in ballots and ballot harvesting? That makes it hard in some states, but most states don't have these problems. In most states, what you saw in the 2022 midterms only a few days ago was the result of the Mitch McConnell Uniparty sabotaging its own candidates. They did this in Nevada with Laxalt. They certainly did this with Carrie Lake. They did this to an extent with Herschel Walker in Georgia and with Mehmet Oz in Pennsylvania, as well as about a dozen House seats. My prediction would have come completely true, well within the margins of what I predicted as far as the general sweep of races if it hadn't been for that uniparty system. Now, I can't chalk this up. When I'm looking at $9 million being spent on a race in Alaska, and here's the kicker, between two Republicans, I can't chalk that up to inefficiency and just being stupid. Nobody would be so stupid to waste money on that when you have so many competitive races. They would have diverted it to those races and said, well, I prefer Murkowski. This would be McConnell. Well, I prefer Murkowski winning. Well, Chewbacca, at least she's a Republican, so I'll just leave that race alone. Instead, he decided to himself divert $9 million to that race. He did not do that because he's stupid. He did that fully knowing what he was doing, and then he abandoned Masters, Laxalt, etc. Scott Christie Jones, Trump and Tulsi, that could work. It could work, yeah. You could definitely do worse. I still want Rand Paul as the running mate, as my number one choice, and Carrie Lake is number 2. DeSantis would be on the list. Ted Cruz would be electable in that role, although I don't personally like him. We'll see what happens. Trev Mill, my name is Styx. I was right one time back in 2016, so don't be black-pilled. No, I was actually right on 16 out of the 20 races that I guessed for the midterm elections, as well as most of them for the 2018 midterms and virtually everything down ballot in 2020. But ballot machines are a thing, unfortunately. Mungi, other candidates would just cause division. I won't support them. They need to rally behind Trump. I'm conservative, but I actually like to win. See, I support him without being conservative. I'm not a Republican. I don't give a fucking shit about conservatism. Conservatives don't conserve anything. I prefer Trump's populism. Alexandra Ocharoska. I live in Poland, 2 hours from where the strike happened. I was impressed how most of the world leaders showed restraint, except Zelensky, who called for retaliation right away. I hate this guy. We will be covering the Poland missile strike because boy, oh boy, did the war pigs get egg on their face with that one. Apache, the honking, World War III escalation, and FTX scandal all have me black-pilled. However, Trump's speech has me high energy again. MAGA. Mark Gadetti. Tulsi did a 90-minute podcast last week addressing how she became 100% Second Amendment absolutist. Well, if you can link me that on Twitter DM, that would be appreciated. I'll take a look. Sparky. Knew Herschel 40 years ago. He was a straight-laced but not judgmental. He was loyal and kind teammate. After practice, he put his books under his arm and went to study while the rest of us goofed off. Yeah, you met Herschel Walker back in the day. Interesting. Adehog, hilariously, the exact same people who said Trump could not pass the primaries in 2015 are super sure he won't make it now. A few people need a reminder that real life is not Twitter. Agreed. Mr. Wonderful, Gabbard has a 2 years to prove herself, but right now Trump needs a loyal pit bull as VP, so it's either Lake or MTG. Marjorie Taylor Greene, I think, would piss off some independent voters. Here's why. And I say this as an independent voter. I like the cut of her jib on many things, but she is extremely obsessed with the religion thing. That is a passing facet of U.S. Electoral politics. I think it would be safer to go with Carrie Lake, who is also more well-spoken, in my opinion, or with Rand Paul, because he can mix that religiosity message with libertarianism or quasi-libertarianism. If you want to get the libertarians back aboard, get an extra point or 2 points of the vote, all you have to do is have Rand. That's all that he has to do. That would carry the election. The Coochie Coo. Arm floaties and goggles affixed, nose plug clinched. I await the tsunami of propagandistic hysteria. It's already begun, my dude. I can hold my breath for 700 days, I guess. A la una en punto. How many religions were ultimately the result of some dude smoking some plants in the desert? Well, some of them were the result of cave gases and things like that as well. Keith Sparbini, Christy Nome for VP. That would be all right. That'd be acceptable. I don't think it'd be top 5, but reasonable. Aussie's robots. Presidential races usually have coattails, especially if it's a change election. Trump could drag a wave of MAGA candidates in 2024. Look for the Uniparty to try everything to get them out of the way by running neocons and refusing to support the MAGA candidates in the primaries. The Coochie Coo. Could Tim Scott be a VP candidate? Could. Would it be a good idea? Maybe, maybe not. Massey would be up there. It'd certainly help with the further right people who have, in some cases, climbed off of the Trump train. Nickel dime. FTX had lucrative ties with Biden's SEC regulators while running an outright Ponzi and money laundering scheme. This Bernie Madoff 2.0 while funding a war. Joshua R. Not seeing many people talking about the Fed dropping the year-long investigation on Giuliani. Any thoughts? Yeah, my thoughts are there's a reason why you don't see much about that. Hint, hint. It's not in the news for a reason. Yes, indeed, Rudy Giuliani skates. He did nothing wrong. They aren't even bringing charges against him. And so you won't hear it from CNN. Hell, has Fox done a report on it? No? I think there's a reason for that. Look at what Rupert Murdoch just put out the other day. Fubar 2020, do you think McConnell and McCarthy remain leaders in the GOP? I hope not. But I'm not even going to bother giving a prediction because it depends on the number of senators there that are pissed off at their weak performance. Reality Paranormal. Shameless plug. I've recently found out that I'm pregnant. I've also released my first book, Pagan Poetry, and some personal anecdotes about my spiritual place. This is the beginning of my own diaper fun. Well, congratulations on the pregnancy. That means that you fornicated. BW sent $1. No comment. Thank you. Not a banned account. Will the US dollar collapse in the next 5 years? No, I do not believe so. Hell, it's possibly riding too high. At some point, you got to water it down just to conduct trade. Good luck doing that, by the way, with the Fed's current actions. Miguel Barrera, with nothing changing with the midterms being a stalemate, do you think the Dems will be blamed for the coming recession? I think that is the silver lining of what happened in the midterms, which is that because they're maintaining the Senate, at least, in a 50-50, depending on what happens in Georgia, yeah, they'll actually get blamed for it. Good luck in 2024, assholes. Why do you think that they're immediately pulling out all the stops to try to cock-block Trump from being the nominee? Because they're worried he'll actually win. Michael Cricklow, is it possible Orange Man Bad runs out of gas? No, I think that we'll be hearing about that even after Trump dies. It'll be like one of those tales from ancient Rome. You've got an emperor who is reasonably competent and well-liked, but then they're barely remembered, or they're remembered as a villain thereafter, because the people that actually wrote the books, like the intellectual class, fucking hated them. So if you got a man of a people emperor from Roman times, like arguably, I hate to say this, and I don't know whether it's revisionism or not, but some people are starting to question, like, if Caligula actually was crazy or rapacious. They're thinking that the possibility is that the intellectuals, the elite, like the patricians, didn't like him, and they wrote the history books after he was dead, effectively, and talked about all the crazy shit he supposedly did, defaming him. Same possibly with Nero. It could be one of those cases. Crazy Loon, what if DeSantis immediately endorses Trump? That would be his wisest decision. I would not expect that it happens immediately, though. He'll probably stand back and let things happen. Mr. Wonderful, seeing Barron Trump today being the spitting image of his old man circa the late 70s made me think of a possible presidential dynasty, perhaps. I think that Barron Trump is a little bit young to be getting into politics. Also, he's like, what, fucking 6'4" or some shit? God, somebody ate his Wheaties. Joel's Journey, thoughts on shields for missiles? I think that would be difficult to develop and actually have the missile still be as versatile as it currently is. Mark Guidetti, I'm banned from Twitter, so I can't send you the link. It's her podcast on her channel that she did with Steve Scalise. Okay, I'll have to look that up later. If somebody else can get that to me, the podcast with Tulsi Gabbard, with Steve Scalise talking about guns. Atrus Oranus, devil's advocate idea. What if McConnell is playing the super long game? By losing the Senate, Republicans face backlash after the full onset of recession. Yeah, possibly, although I think you mean Democrats facing the backlash. It's possible. Lev Polyakov, good morning, Sticks. Chamomile still hasn't sprouted yet because I planted them too late. Also, please check Twitter DM when you can. Yes, of course, after the live stream. Hunter Wadley, unfortunately, Rand just isn't widely known to normies. Rand would be great as Senate Majority or Minority Leader. Don't double down on MAGA, turn heads, and win with independence. I think Rand would win with independence and bring potentially libertarian firepower aboard. If you can do that, you win the election. I would still support Rand Paul as the running mate. Failing that, though, I would agree with you. Get him in as a leader in the Senate. Reality Paranormal, I am Katrina the Good on Amazon. Thank you, Clankers, for any support. So, Katrina the Good, over on Amazon. You can check out that work. Gorgeous Mayhem, one of the best things about Trump running is tweeting at leftoids $8 in Trump 2024. Highleaf 11, clanks for days, as this missile attack smells fishy as the missile used wouldn't have been have the range to hit Poland from Russia. Yes, it's been confirmed effectively that it didn't come from Russia. We'll talk about that. Nick Severance, DeSantis sucks. I don't think that he sucks. He did a great job in his re-election bid. I just think that if he is astroturfed into a primary position, I can't support him. But it's not because of him. It would be because of the uniparty astroturfing him. I hope he doesn't take the bait because I think that he's a good governor for Florida. Rob S., Trump 2024, do you and your family do anything for Christmas time? Yeah, we've got our decor actually already up because here there's no Thanksgiving. So it's not considered culturally odd. There is a little Christmas tree over there and some various trimmings. JFET, why isn't SBF in jail? Looks like he is going to walk to me. He should be in jail right now if the feds had any intention of seriously going after him. Yeah. Well, the feds, you got to realize that the feds only go after people for political reasons at this point. Jack Perry, Sticks, I still think a neocon pickoff can happen in Alaska or Colorado, Lauren Boebert. plus 2023 gubernatorial races, then GOP primary, Pence making a move. Pence may join in. I explained earlier, he of all of the people who potentially run against Trump in the primaries, he's the one that can do the most damage, because he will say what he'll tell anecdotal tales. Well, Trump pissed all over his hand before he met with Ron Perlman or something like that, to that effect. It will be treated as though it's reality. It will be reported as though it is the gospel truth endlessly. So if Mike Pence gets in, he could do damage to Donald Trump, simply because he's familiar with the administration. Even if what he says is completely false, it'll be taken as true. Iggy the Incubus sent a link to the Tulsi Gabbard podcast the other guy was talking about. Thank you. Also, did you catch that the person investigating the DNC and RNC pipe bomber apparently resigned? I did see something about that on 4chan, actually. Haven't looked into it. Backwoods Libertarian, do you think Larry Elder can be a potential VP? Possible. He'd be on the list, but not in the top 5, I suppose. Gerald Armstrong, rather see Kerry Lake than DeSantis, but if Trump picks DeSantis, the left will call the ticket Ronald McDonald. Oh boy, wouldn't that be fucking funny. Adam THM, Sticks, what do you think about the inflation numbers? 8% is being touted as a win by Democrats. Yeah, I don't think that'll go over too well. People can only take so much. Mr. Doc, oddly, I could see Trump supporting an hours 3 for Senate just to choose a candidate to pull their own weight. I don't know exactly what that refers to. An hours 3 for Senate. I think he should support Rand Paul for Senate leader if he's not going to get him aboard as VP. Failing that, probably it goes to Ted Cruz or Rick Scott. I'm not really sold on either of them. I'm not a big Rick Scott or Ted Cruz fan, as you may have noticed. Perturbed Sun, given the high office MAGA candidates being beaten around the country in the midterms, how do you figure Trump isn't super vulnerable in a general? As he pointed out during his speech, the majority of the people he endorsed actually won. It's just that the people with high-profile Senate races got thrown under the bus by the Uniparty. Trump should hammer them. Trump should already be hammering Mitch McConnell. We'll see exactly how he does this. Fabian Piper sent €2, but coming. Thank you. Mungi, my point wasn't that I'm a conservative in supporting Trump. It's that other conservatives love to lose. We need to kick the losers out of the GOP. I would agree with that. Although I would say that, of course, the GOP doesn't represent broad conservatism any more than the Democrats' broad liberalism. There just happens to be an overlap. UFO Bigfoot, Nicholas Schreck is a grifter. Never sent pre-orders. I know nothing about that. I did get my copy of Manson File, but that was years ago. If you're talking about an album or something now, I can look into it perhaps. Try to contact. I haven't been in contact with Nicholas Schreck, I think, now for 5 years, so. Sparky, DNC took away Dem candidate Allison Grimes' money in 2014, 4 weeks before election against Uniparty Mitch McConnell. Grimes still got 37% of the vote. Yeah, not a surprise. The Grizzly, are you worried about the death of liberty in the U.S. as cities and the left march to authoritarianism? I've watched many of the family members march down being in the middle for social democracy and then spin around and goose step for censorship. I'm not worried about that in small town America because, again, if you push people too far, you have a problem, and that happens to control 99% of the food supply. It'd be difficult times for the inner cities if there were actually a Tim Pool-esque sort of civil war situation. Luke Robinson, ever thought of debating Destiny on some political topic? He's very informed and a good debater from a leftist pro-establishment perspective. No, actually, there was a planned debate with Destiny years ago, and then I got a tip-off from somebody who literally moderated on his Discord that his intent was not exactly a good faith one. That is, that the attempt was going to be to get me banned, to get me shit-canned, by drawing me into conversations to say things that were bannable. I believe this person. There's someone that I had contact with prior and had no reason to doubt them at all. I saw the DMs myself. And I keep getting dogpiled by Destiny's asshole fans sometimes. Well, you would show the DMs if it was really true. Yeah, I'm going to throw my friend under the bus. Yeah. Just to appease your midget commentator. Musically assured destruction. Trump DeSantis ticket. DeSantis can be in the White House for 12 years. DeSantis would be fine. Tyler Morrison. NBC reporter suspended for Paul Pelosi story. I did see that. Mr. Doc, horse dam was driving, not ours. Oh, okay. Blair Phillips, Sticks, any chance the Poland incident was a massive distraction from a certain orange announcement? No, I don't think so. I don't. I think that was the result of third parties firing a U.S. missile, possibly. Mr. Wonderful, there will never be another male VP. Sad, but true. I think you're wrong there. We'll wait and see. Sparky, Lieutenant Colonel Alan West would be a great VP. The establishment and globalists hate him. Yeah, possible. Pepe Payne over on Rumble. Tulsi released a recent range video if you haven't seen it. I saw the range video, but now we're alluding to a different one, which has to do, I guess, with her delivering a diatribe in favor of the Second Amendment. I'd love to see it. Sigil Stone 17. Thoughts on Trump's call to Duterte the drug dealers? I love George Carlin's idea more. Mostly peaceful, the bankers laundering the drug money. Yeah, George Carlin's idea of having like 4 states cordoned off for different kinds of criminals is obviously it's comedy, but it was a novel one. I do not believe in killing drug dealers, unless perhaps they're selling to little kids or something. Yeah, you're getting an 11-year-old dosed up on fentanyl, of course. It's a different story. I would point out much with the Halloween story that was being run with by the right wing. Drug dealers typically don't give freebies to people who are too young to have jobs. Just to be clear, most of them are clear-headed enough and not getting high on their own supply, so they're not trying to get your 12-year-old hooked on heroin or something like that. Because how the fuck are they going to pay for it? Unless they happen to be a pervert, so a Dem voter or something, they're not going to do that. Get them desperate, maybe. That's one thing. Unfortunately, probably does actually happen. Generally speaking, though, they want moolah. 12-year-olds don't have moolah. What are they going to do? Steal mom's credit card and give it to the drug dealer? Yeah, that'll go over really well. You won't get caught in the process. Keith Sparbaney, leftoids would implode if Donald J. Trump put Cruz on SCOTUS. Yes, Ted Cruz for Supreme Court would be definitely a meme. Next news story. We have, of course, a missile hitting in Poland, killing several people. It was at a grain silo, I believe. They were drying grain. And initially, the report was it came from Russia. We now know that it actually came out of Ukraine. It didn't come from Russia. There's question as to the origins of this missile. The official story right now, and Biden even alluding to this, by the way, trying to de-escalate the fucking tensions to show you how tension-straddled it was, saying that it appears as though a Russian missile was incoming into Ukraine, and a missile was fired to counter the Russian missile by the Ukrainians, but it missed, and then it sort of whizzed off across the Polish border. It's feasible. That's a plausible story. I'm not going to bother disbelieving it. And so Russia did not attack the Polish, but I would like to read you a tweet. This is by Andrew Wortman. He's one of the up-and-coming leftoid commentators with bad takes. So he's basically like Dash Dabrowski and some people like that, or what's his name there? I can't even remember, the anti-gun kid that constantly tweets all day and thinks that makes him relevant. I'm actually drawing a blank right now. Anyway, Andrew Wortman. Holy shit. If this is confirmed, it's bye-bye Russia. Article 5 of NATO states that each and every other member of the alliance will consider any act of violence as an armed attack against all members and will take the actions it deems necessary to assist the ally attacked. I loved how Donald Trump pointed out hyperbolic takes like this that we've seen over the past months, actually in his announcement speech. Right now, we have a bunch of shitheads who themselves would never dare to serve, just to be clear. They would never put on their combat boots, take up their M16 and go over to Russia to fight the Ruskies or anything like that. And they'd be crying their ass off and screaming in goddamn pain because they're all urban city dwellers, so they'd be the first ones turned into piles of ashes, and good riddance, I suppose. You've got a bunch of these people making all of these "oorah, USA #1" hyperbolic goddamn war pig comments, and you sound like a bunch of Bushites. But then I remind myself, the left has become the group of Bush. You applaud Bush and Liz Cheney and people like that. You're the same exact goddamn war pigs, drooling all over yourself and shitting into your own fat rolls. You're pigs. You're worthless human beings. You support the concept, I guess, of starting a nuclear war. You think you won't be affected. Bullshit. You live in penthouses and gated communities just outside of big cities. You're the first to die, and good riddance to you if that happens. So Andrew Wortman can fuck himself. Dabrowski and all these others. Oh, Russia really pissed us off this time. They fired a missile into a NATO country. Quick, let's start a nuclear war. That sounds like a great time. Then, of course, within 24 hours, upon further recognition, you find it didn't come from Russia. It probably didn't involve Russian forces. It appears that the missile was accidentally sent off kilter by people within Ukraine. Oh, go ahead and trigger Article 5. Be knee-jerkers like you always are. Sparky, Alan West went to high school, where I would have gone if I hadn't been sent to that school for troubled youths. I was in a school for troubled youths for a while, actually, myself. Fantech 0104. Pennsylvania seemed way more blue than New York in the midterms this year. Is Pennsylvania in danger of becoming a deep blue state? It had been. It's more balanced now. Meanwhile, New York might become a swing state. We'll talk about that briefly. 509 Drone. Just wanted to show support. You're one of the OG creators that has stayed true to principles. Yeah, I've been making YouTube videos since 2007. It's been a while. Hismanai, Happy Clank, your daily clanker message there. Rocky, when do you plan on making a return to the U.S.? When I can. Probably not too long from now. Sparky, remember, Ukraine shot down the MH17 airliner. They tried to blame Russia, then the serial number matched the Ukrainian inventory. Ben Darling, which issue have you changed your mind most about? Oh, that's an interesting one. Oh, you've got me stumped, actually. Probably on, probably on taxes. I've become more anti-tax over time. I used to say, hey, let's cut the amount of taxes by 20, 30%. Now I think you should cut it by 70, 80% because they're just going to waste it anyway. I was a pro-gun liberal, just to be clear. Matthew Gee, by the way, sending $300. Thank you very much. That'll buy a lot of diapers. I appreciate it. Trust me. Democrats are scared of Trump, yet it will be his last term. If Trump gets in, he'll do this term and the GOP will move on to the next guy. True. If he doesn't get in, he'll just run in 2028. Trumpism will be a thing as long as Trump can be a candidate. It's funny. It actually serves their best interest. If he loses, and whether there's honking or not, I would be skeptical that he would run in 28, even if he's eligible to do so. At that point, he'd be more likely to endorse somebody, and then who that is depends on the political climate. I think that Trump actually does have a legit chance, though. People are writing him off preemptively, saying, well, they'll be honking in the election. There's too many anti-Trump Republicans, as though that didn't literally peak around 2016. The TDS movement back then was stronger than it is now. It just wasn't as moneyed as it is. I think that he has a legit chance if he can overcome the in-party, uniparty shenanigans. That will require a lot of turnout and a lot of planning by Trump voters over the next couple of years. I don't think, though, that if he loses, that he would run in 2028. I think at that point, he'd be 82. He might not even still be alive at that point, to tell the truth. He'd be quite old. Biden needs to keep that in mind as well. I don't think that he would run again, ego or not. And I do think part of the reason for him running is ego. I just think that that's helpful to the country. It's in his best interest for his ego to do a good job, to get adulation. Lev Polyakov, good morning, Sticks. Thoughts on Legend of Zeldin? Also, please check DMs. Again, I will check the DMs after the live stream. I don't know about Legend of... Do you mean Legend of Zelda? Are you mixing up Lee Zeldin with Zelda now, Lev? Shit, you've got Biden brain. You got to get off the thoth, man. I could see mushrooms in front of my eyes, man. It's a big problem. Symbolic belief. My brother is putting up a 1K bet that Trump won't become the GOP nominee. Would you take it? If I were a gambler, yeah, I would take that bet. The unofficial Chris Bliss. That rant on war pigs was killer. 100%. Yeah, fuck the warmongers. Give them a gun and let them go over and do it themselves. Zelensky takes volunteers. Go and stop tweeting, Wortman. Go over and do it yourself. Get Zhang Zhuger and all the other morons. Go die. That's it's for the best. Sigil Stone 17. Activate Article 5 and invade Ukraine for shits and giggles. Ignore Russia entirely. That'd be a good troll. Yeah, it could do something like that. Oh, this is our land now. We heard that you had an oil well in your cabbage patch. Musically assured destruction. To election black pillars, there's a rising conservatarian wing in the GOP that will take years to solidify. The trajectory is there. Patience. True. Next news story, we've got Dave Chappelle. He stepped on the wrong people's feet. He was supposed to just keep making jokes about white people, and he has throughout time. I can give you several. Hey, did you hear about white people's cooking? They don't use seasoning. Ha, ha, ha. Isn't that funny? It's the first time that you've heard it, I'm sure. Hey, white people can't jump. Small pecker, stuff like that. Those jokes are acceptable. They're also commended within comedy. Dave Chappelle happens to be black, so he's also allowed to joke about black people. So he can use the N-word, and he can talk about black upbringings and, oh, they say white people's food isn't seasoned. We season ours too much, or something generic like that. That's fine. It's tolerated, although not commendable, if a black comedian talks about Asian Americans. So, Asian drivers or something like this, some fairly stereotypical joke. That's tolerated, although it's not going to get as many laughs because some people be offended. It's just, you're not going to get shit canned for it. You're not going to get canceled. But then he decided to talk about a group of people that I'm not going to talk about on this live stream because it's on YouTube. And this totally proves the point that this group of people does not have any form of disproportionate legal or political protection in the United States. I'm just going to leave it at that. Yeah, that's all that I've got to say. Unlike Dave Chappelle, I've got a child, a hungry mouths to feed here. So I'm not willing to criticize certain groups of people that, you know who I'm talking about, of course, because they totally don't have any disproportionate protection from the political system. You can read that for yourself. Link in the description, of course. It's from the Huffington Post. The Anti-Defamation League slams Dave Chappelle's SNL appearance because he is normalizing and popularizing anti-Semitism by literally making a joke. He's literally a comedian. He's also disadvantaged. He's black, but he's not allowed to do that. It's wrong. Iggy the Incubus, I typically am biased against dynastic politics, multiple members of the same family becoming presidents, but what do you think about a possible Barron Trump run in the future? I think he's 19 years old. I think it's way too early to talk about that. If you're talking about Don Jr. or Eric Trump or someone like, maybe, it's possible. I'm skeptical of dynastic runs too. The fact that the Don does a good job does not necessarily mean that one of his kids would. Dire Wolf 0. In that case, wouldn't we be then technically at war with Ukraine under Article 5 as Ukraine is not part of NATO? Yeah, I guess we have to bomb the Ukrainians now because of Article 5. They were calling for it to be triggered when they thought the missile came from Russia. Then they found out it came from Ukraine, and all of a sudden they shut up about that. Next news story. The red wave was real in New York, and the GOP can build on it. I wanted to cover this. The Republicans managed to almost knock off the governor of New York. Technical incumbent, Hochul. Of course, she had taken over for Cuomo. So it held the position, not technically incumbent in the sense of being elected the position, but she had held the position prior. The Republicans, as I predicted they would, and predicted this would be outsizedly important, managed to come well within 10 points of knocking her out. This is one of the bluest of blue states. This is like California with Gavin Newsom or something. And yet the Republicans almost managed to grab it. The same is true with Maggie Hassan, of course, v. Bolduc in New Hampshire. That's very interesting. I think that New York could be headed on its way, and this is possibly because of the flight of people out of New York City. It could become a swing state. And if that happens before 24, the Democrats, by the way, will lose. Just to be clear. Miku Huntu 4X Bot. I don't hate them, but they do own everything. Lol. Yeah, I don't have any disproportionate control over the political system, but I just got hundreds of millions of dollars of your wealth wiped off the face of the earth because you criticized me. That was the Kanye story. With Dave Chappelle, he can do a profanity-laced rant about white people, black people, by the way, Asians, and talking about Muslims if he wants to. There's only one group of people that he has made a joke about that has resulted in that kind of visceral reaction. What I would tell Jewish Americans is this is not helping your goddamn cause. You need to call out groups like the ADL more because they are effectively giving ammunition to people who are genuine. Now, unlike Dave Chappelle, who's a comedian, and I don't think he is anti-Semitic, there are people out there that have swastika tattoos and shave their heads. They watch Triumph of the Will and then they get teary-eyed and stuff. They do exist. I've met some of these people. You are giving them leverage effectively when you're not calling out groups like the ADL for pretending that a comedy skit is anti-Semitic. Just not to mince words, but if you're dogpiling Dave Chappelle and Kerry and Kanye and people like that for saying something about, quite literally, business people who happen to be Jewish, it looks weird, because the fact is, if they complain about white business owners screwing them over on a deal or something like that, nobody cares. It's not treated the same way, and that inequality is not doing you any ideological favors. BW, what happens if Walker loses? Nothing, really. The Dems will have a 50-50 with the tiebreaker Kamala in the Senate, even if he wins. So there's no difference. Symbolic belief. Okay, what would you say the percent chance is the GOP nom? You mean Trump? A very high chance, because right now there's no one running against him. And I don't think most of them will have the capability or the will to run against him. You'll probably see Pompeo might jump in. Liz Cheney might be crazy enough to jump in. You could see a run from some, nominal neocon. I'm skeptical on whether DeSantis joins in the club. And he's the only one that's within the double-digit range other than Trump. David Green. Donald J. Trump peed on Perlman. Is Griffith next? MAGA. Lev Polyakov. It was a Lee Zeldin pun coined by actual justice warrior who debated on BTR versus a communist yesterday. Most of the signs on Long Island I saw were Zeldin, but all Hochul signs were abortion-related. Yeah, Zeldin is also on the short list for potential contenders for the future, considering the good job that he did. And endorsed by both Trump and DeSantis, so a unifier. John Andrew, during World War II, Hitler bombed Hungary to get them to declare war on Russia. I see the same tactics being used in the Poland bombing. They want World War III so bad. Or they want the appearance of World War III. You think that all of those rich, moneyed people really want all of their worldly goods to be turned to ashes? Matt G. Hammond on Rumble. I sent you the link where Tulsi discusses the Second Amendment via Twitter DM. Yes, I've got several people who have sent that to me, and I thank you all. I'll be watching that later. It's my evening respite. Next news story. I'm going to gloss this over quickly. I'm going to try to keep this around an hour. We've got about 13 minutes to go, so let's hurry up. Please don't send any more super chats. Please do not give me any more money. I'm satisfied. I'll deliver the news here. Opinion. Run, Joe, run. Bringing up Forrest Gump, by the way, in the context of Joe Biden is so fucking goddamn hilarious. Why I don't worry about Biden's age, and you shouldn't either. This is an opinion piece from Politico, of course. Who wrote it? Jeffrey Sonnenfeld. Anyway, I would like you to focus on one thing here. Not the article itself, but rather what it omits. The article itself is entirely about ageism, and Biden can still do it. Okay, there have been world leaders like Charles de Gaulle who have been in their 80s or 90s and stuff like that. I noticed they don't mention Strom Thurmond in this article, by the way. Here's my point with regards to age in politics. I do not believe in an age cap for Congress, et cetera, et cetera. I have no problem with voting for Trump, who will be 76 or 77 at the time of the election. Here's my problem with Biden. It's not the fact that he's 80 years old. I don't care. I wouldn't care if he were 100. My problem is that he has cognitive decline. That's not really mentioned within this article. There is a big difference between simply being old. You're going to slow down in some ways when you're old. This article, by the way, talks about being elderly as though it's some great thing. Well, you learn to be more tempered. You take a step back and you consider things, you ponder them for longer. Yeah, because your mental faculties typically are a bit slower. Don't give me this bullshit about being old being a good thing. I'm looking forward to enjoying the rest of my 30s and my 40s, and then things will begin to physically decline. They will begin to mentally decline. My hope is that maybe I hit 80 years old and I'm still with it. In other words, I'm not like Joe Biden. And things will generally be fine. If I get to the point where I can't garden, I would rather fucking off myself, to be clear. Joe Biden is not fine mentally. That's the problem. Not his age. There are people in their goddamn 60s who start getting dementia. It's not common, but it does happen. My grandmother, on my father's side, she died when she was about 68 years old. She had dementia by that time. She didn't take care of her body. She had massive diabetes and various other health issues. She had cysts in her brain, actually. She also had dementia. She was not even quite 70 years old. Joe Biden is pushing 80. Okay, you've had a good run. That's great. You made it through your 70s without too many problems. Your age isn't the problem, though. It's the fact that you can't goddamn be coherent. You don't know where you are. You forget people are alive or dead. You forget their names. You're doing weird shit with females all over the place. That's the problem. That Joe Biden has had several aneurysms. He's had 3 falls since he won the goddamn presidency. He had several during the goddamn primaries. He is not mentally with it. It's not about the age. Okay, there are people that make it to 100. There was some forest ranger I remember reading about years ago, working for the Forest Service, and she was 100 some odd years old, and she was still doing her job. By the way, she didn't look a day over a goddamn 60, and I don't know how the goddamn hell she accomplished it. But that's fine. You're old, but you're still with it. Joe Biden's not. There are people that are way younger that are not demented that aren't with it either. Like, I'm not going to vote for the Gen Z presidential candidate if they're goddamn brain dead and all they can think about is Montero either. Joe Biden is in the same mental range. Jason Griffith, how is fatherhood treating you? Pretty well, although I did get woken up several times last night. Hunter Wadley, the only thing that could get leftists in the West Coast to wake up and break that NIMBY bubble is the San Andreas acting up. Give it time. That'll eventually happen, and it'll crack the California vote. Silky Johnson, how will the ADL react when their oy-veying over imagined anti-Semitism leads to actual anti-Semitism from their constant freakouts, if it happens? I've warned about this with regards to the corporate reaction to the alt-right. I warned about it for years. If you begin censoring people and making hyperbolic claims about Nazi, 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 and you're doing it to people who clearly they're not, you're giving a pass effectively to people who actually have violent views. You're ignoring them. You're fixating on some fucking YouTuber for a joke that they made 6 years ago, and you're ignoring people who are actually like, hey, 1488, ha, 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 Hitler. It's astounding. But the thing is that Hitler poster probably doesn't have as big an audience and doesn't get as much attention, so the ADL can't make as much money complaining about them. It's just, oh, here's a Nazi, please ban him. Well, it goes over. They're not going to write an article about that. It's just some random fucking Nazi living in a trailer making methamphetamine. They're not going to take credit for it. They don't give a fuck. They'd rather them continue to talk anyway. Shane Keena, make the cities red again. We need at least 1 million Lee Zeldins or Glenn Youngkins running around fixing the urban metros up. Again, please don't send any more super chats. I have a couple more news articles to go through, and I'm trying to speed through them because I'm getting close to an hour here. Alamandorius, age doesn't necessarily mean you lose mental faculties. My friend's grandfather was 80 plus and as sharp as any younger person. Yeah, my non-biological grandpa was 82 before he developed signs of Alzheimer's. But, I mean, age does eventually catch up with you. Desiccated corpse. We're sending mannequins to the moon. Yay. Aquafan, what do you think of the idea of statewide elections, governor, senate, and cabinet being done via an electoral college that is comprised of counties? That's fine. I know that Razorfist has suggested that. Next news story, Arizona gubernatorial election. Katie Hobbs defeats GOP challenger Kari Lake. Race may now go to a recount under state law. Yes, indeed, force a recount. That's my simple advice. Kari Lake should not concede until a hand recount is done, and there should be international monitors brought in. Yes, despite it probably being a long shot as to the efficacy of doing so, there need to be international monitoring groups from now on in Arizona because quite clearly they cannot run an election. Think everything that you want about how fair it is, how above board it is, etc. It should not take that long. It's simply inefficient. It doesn't make any sense. Even if you consider the election to be fair, honk, honk, of course I do. Yeah, Maricopa County is just fine. It's not efficient. It doesn't make any sense to have to wait a goddamn week. They should be stripped of having delegates or votes at all until they fix their goddamn system. The Democrats should be calling for this too. Hey, what gives? I think the treasurer was a MAGA Republican endorsed by Trump and still won, but it doesn't get announced for a whole goddamn week. Sigil Stone 17. I don't know that I can read that one on YouTube. Yeah, I'm questioning whether I'm allowed to say that on YouTube. I don't want to go Dave Chappelle. I don't want to be the next Kanye, in other words. Al Creeper 67. Hi, happy to be able to catch you. Love your show. Next news story, don't blame Trump. Any midterm autopsy ought to focus on how to close the national money gap and how to turn out less engaged voters. I partially agree with this. This is an article about, Trump is not responsible for the midterm defeat of the GOP. I happen to concur with that. There was a money gap. I would point out, though, that there was not a voting gap. The less engaged voter thing is actually not true. The GOP won 5 million additional votes in the midterm elections. That's pretty significant. They did very well as far as turnout goes. The turnout was higher for the GOP. The problem is that you did have a money gap. That part's correct. And it was specifically designed by the GOP leadership. People like Mitch McConnell withheld money from Blake Masters, Carrie Lake, Mastriano, again, in full admission, he wouldn't have won anyway, probably. Mehmet Oz to an extent, even Herschel Walker. You would have 53 Senate seats right now if Mitch McConnell had acted appropriately. You would be well over the margin. You wouldn't be 1 vote or 2 votes over the House margin for controlling the House and kicking out Pelosi like you are now. You would have gained probably 15 or 20 net seats. It wouldn't have been close. You had the votes, you had the candidates, but you didn't support the candidates. This is because of the Uniparty. They are responsible for the midterm fiasco. Mitch McConnell needs to lose his job. He needs to be forced into retirement. Kevin McCarthy should not lead the new House majority. They should be kicked aside. The people running the GOP at the monetary level as well, the RNC itself, need to be ousted also. And then the final news story, this is just, I'm just going to gloss this over because it's just for fun. Link in the description if you want to see the fucking funniest political picture that you've ever seen. It's 10 memes at the same time. It's John Fetterman with his wife, right? Next to his new, his senator-elect office. Please look at this photo. If you do literally nothing else during this live stream and you're black-pilled, okay, I understand, not feeling really great about the midterms. I feel great because there's almost 8,000 people watching and the Rumble engagement has definitely goddamn picked up with almost 3,200 there. To be clear, it used to be 3-1 in favor of YouTube. Now it's like 3-2 at best. I'm feeling very good actually at the moment. Please look at this picture of John Fetterman. Can you say improperly cropped? And this isn't the first time that she's done it. Fetterman is a tall dude. I think he's probably like 6'2", 6'3". He's probably like at least my height. And his wife is like, average height or something. And he's built like a brick shit house. Every time, though, that they take a goddamn picture together, she is the center of attention. It's centered on her. In this picture, you can clearly see that. John Fetterman's off to the side with a cockeyed look. He's looking totally like a cuck. It's like you've got this fairly big, brawny dude. He's a goddamn cuck. It's like she's getting plowed by the bull every night while he watches and cries or enjoys himself, I suppose. This is goddamn hilarious. Look at the fucking goddamn pictures that she takes of her and her husband. And by the way, they're almost never next to each other either. If there are multiple people in the picture, she's usually the other person's between her and her husband. And if it's like this and there's just 2 people, which is her and her husband, John Fetterman, she is the one closer to the center of frame. Although she cropped it so poorly, she's not the center of attention either. I guess it wasn't wide enough to be able to include them both and have her truly in the center. Some people are saying that Fetterman is 6'7" or 6'8". Wow. That's okay, then she must be close to 6 feet tall. She's a tall drink of water, I suppose. I mean, everything about this is goddamn hilarious, and you're going to get to see more of it because keep in mind, she is officially his spokesperson. So she's traveling around with him virtually 24/7. Just imagine when he gets badgered and, he's interviewing for the news or something like that. He's talking to CNN. Someone asks a question he doesn't like and he stammers. Imagine when she shoves him out of the way very visibly and starts rambling red-faced into the camera. I predict that you will see something like that happen. It's going to be exquisite. It's going to be glorious. I can't wait. Almost glad the bastard won his election. Andy, the MAGA party did well with what they were given, to be honest. They were outspent. FTX, anyone? By 100-1 in some places. Yes, no help from McConnell. Disturbed 2K7. Fetterman proved that the age of the human is over. Now the age of the super mutant. Yeah, the age of man has ended. The age of orcs has begun. Yeah, I didn't know he was quite that tall. Iraqi oil money. Lack of money was very noticeable in Michigan. I watch a lot of YouTube and I get 30 Whitmer ads for every one of Dixon's. That's probably just YouTube's algorithms right there, to tell the truth. Damon Kelly. Fetterman, half-breed Klingon. Yeah. Anyway, I think that I'm going to go off here. I've got one more in Rumble. Il Sarto, caught you live. I gotta say that Milo take was pure conjecture. Really disappointing. Yeah, some people are saying I got it wrong, but you gotta realize I was watching several clips from it that were supplied to me. So if I was wrong about that, then I apologize. I'll have to take a look at that. Much like I might have been wrong about Tulsi Gabbard and guns, apparently there's a 30-minute segment of her applauding the Second Amendment. So we'll see if a Trump-Tulsi run is actually something that I would tolerate as of later. Sparky, Kevin McCarthy is a Paul Ryan clone. Agreed. That's the problem. All right, I'm going to go off now. We've gone over an hour. I appreciate all of your super chats. Keep in mind, I will be doing the live stream tomorrow. I do it every weekday, other than yesterday because I had things to do. We're going to have, I think, a shit ton of political stuff to talk about tomorrow, including some bad legacy media takes. It's just a prediction that will definitely come true and doesn't exactly take any forethought or occult power to realize. That's about all. Peace out.